Hello, 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 hello. Hello. This is going to be a whole lot of information. I wanted to ask a bunch of pros, some of my friends who work in the music industry, making money at this, what the plugins are that they just can't work without. The way I posed the question was, what are the plugins so deep in your workflow you don't even think about it? Because around this time of year, it's after Black Friday, it's after Christmas, everything is on sale right now, and there's a couple of these that are stupid cheap. So make sure you stick around for the full video, because you could pick up some crazy stuff for pretty cheap. Let's get into it. So I'm going to start off this whole thing with one of the heavy hitters here, Warren David. Incredible engineer. Go look this guy up. His work is pretty impressive. And he gave a whole lot of information. He gave the desert island stuff. He gave a secret sauce list. And then he gave utilities. Let's start out with his desert island stuff. First one on the list, FabFilter Pro Q3. This one pops up a lot. Get ready, folks. FabFilter, it's a staple. If you haven't used this before, it's a very flexible, very quick EQ. It has some dynamic modes, mid-side modes. It's a very useful EQ right now, $84. Moving right along. His second one on his list was Soothe 2. I really like this plugin. I had Soothe 1 for the longest time. Soothe 2 is basically the same thing, just way less CPU intensive. It does a few more things a little better, but this is a utility plugin if there ever was one. When there's something wrong with the sound and you just can't quite put your finger on it, or you can get it another way via EQ, this is a much quicker way to do it. This can be overused. It's a little expensive at $209, but if you do this for a living, or you want to do this for a living, I think you'll be very surprised how often you use this plugin. His number 3 was Spectre. I have not personally used this plugin, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. $99. It's basically like if a saturator and an EQ had a baby, you have Spectre. He loves it. Good enough for me. FabFilter Pro MB. This is another utility plugin. It's not one you think about as being a favorite. This is like a problem solver or a very general shaper. Right now it's $169. FabFilter sometimes will run deals on their own website, so check out some stuff around there. Killer plugin. You'll use it way more than you think. Now to get on to his secret sauce plugin. This is still sticking with Warren David. He gave us a lot of stuff here. Tone Project's Unisum. It's a compressor. This is one that was on his secret sauce list, and it's one that I just recently picked up. This thing is insanely powerful. This is $199. It's not a cheap plugin, but stupid powerful. The amount of things that you can do with these plugins, if Tone Project does nothing else, they build vastly more functionality into their plugins than a lot of other companies do. I have been using this for a few weeks and have barely scratched the surface, but it sounds great. There's a whole lot under the hood of this. And actually, I want to shout out another YouTube channel here. I freaking love this guy. Panorama Mixing and Mastering. If you haven't watched this guy, go check him out. He is a freaking gem with criminally low subscribers. Awesome guy. And he has a video specifically about Unisum. Actually, I don't know if it's specifically about Unisum or if it's just one of the plugins he talks about, but he goes into a crazy amount of detail, and this is a mastering engineer on a whole other level than I am, and his explanation is fantastic, so I'm not even gonna try. Go watch that video at some point, but Unisum $199, killer compressor. The next one on Warren's list threw me for a loop. I do not know this plugin at all, but it's in his secret sauce pile, so I'm going to take it seriously. Pulsar Modular's P42 Climax plugin. Basically looks like a Mixbus Mojo plug. $264. However, you get 40 days of a trial. That's a pretty good tryout. Go try it out. I'm going to try it out because if Warren says it's that good, I'm gonna go check it out. Next one on his list, Kazrog True Iron. I've heard so many good things about this clipper. I basically have one clipper that I use all. It's a JST clip if I'm using something kind of like this. I should try Kazrog. It's only $37 right now. Go for it. I'm probably going to. Warren's next one is Black Box, the mid-side version. I use Black Box a lot, but I don't use it in mid-side, and this has me very interested to try this out in a different context. Right now, it's only $49. This is one of the ones that's a stupid deal right now. I don't know why it's on sale. I paid way more for it than that. $49.99 on Plugin Alliance. Go check it out. If nothing else, get a demo of it because this is super useful. I use it all the time. His next one is the PSP Vintage Warmer. I got sent this plugin a long time ago, along with a lot of PSP stuff, and I've been digging through their plugins, and I've found uses for them, and this is one that stuck out to me and that I continue to use, so it's really cool to see it pop up on Warren's list too. Think about it like a crazy character plug. It's pretty flexible. It does a lot of heavy lifting for you, that's for sure. That is $149. It does go on sale sometimes, so keep your eyes open. Next one on Warren's list, he just said Valhalla. I assume that's Valhalla reverbs, of which they're normally $50 a pop. There are a lot of different options here. Valhalla Room, Plate, Vintage Verb. I find Vintage Verb to be the most useful out of all of them. It's the one I use the most. $50, hard to beat. It's a fantastic reverb if you don't have a good reverb already. His next one is not that affordable. Altiverb, $520. Why? I have not used this reverb. I have heard people talk about how it's incredible. That would be a hard sell for me. That said, I was able to find it for $199. That doesn't make it the most expensive plugin on this list anymore, but this was definitely more for shock value. $520. I would not be buying it that way. Last plugin on Warren's list is Michelangelo, and this is also on my list. Another one from Tone Projects. And it is easy to look at this and be like, okay, that's an EQ. If I put it down here, that's basically how this plugin pulls up normally. You just see the EQ portion, but there's a whole advanced section down here that can respond to the transients of something, the dynamic frequencies of something. It is stupid flexible, and there's a whole lot you can do with just this. It's way more than just an EQ. And it's easy to push it around way too much. But what I will say, that air and the high end on this thing sounds so good. The low end, being able to trigger it from transients or the body of something like, say, a kick drum, really interesting. And that aggression knob is basically just a saturator on crack. It's really good. This bad boy is a little expensive at $249, so check out if there are deals or sales at any time, but go try it out. See if it works for your workflow. It is definitely one of those that you find way more uses for it than you anticipate. I have. Other ones from Warren, he is using a lot of Dante apparently because Dadman popped up. I use Dadman at some of the locations that I work, and it is crazy flexible. My personal studio is not Dante, but if I was rebuilding a studio, it would be really hard not to go that route because there's just so much you can do under the hood with Dante and a program like Dadman. So cool recommendation. His next one is Loopback. $99, you basically route and get under the hood of basically anything you might need for your computer. It looks to be Mac based. I don't know if it works on Windows, but basically routing audio from anywhere to anywhere. That gets handy when you're using multiple things. And Warren is doing a lot of Atmos mixes, so there's routing things into renderers and through different programs, so that could be useful for somebody like him. For me, I find myself using programs like this because I film YouTube videos where I have to route audio to all different kinds of locations. Having a program like that is super useful. I have a different one that I'll mention later, although this looks pretty attractive for the price, I'm going to say that much. So Warren not only gave us plugins, but he gave us some utilities, and I thought this was a great idea. He included listen to audio movers. I use this a lot, and I really like it. A little bummer, you have to pay by the year for this. For the listen to plugin, that's $99 a year. Basically what that gets you, you could put listen to on like your master bus, and when you're doing mix notes for a client that does not live in your city, in your state, in your country, sometimes all you have to do is send them a link and they can listen in real time to what's happening to the mix. It has been a godsend in trying to get mix notes done with clients that they really don't know how to like say what they want, but if you can get them on the phone while they're listening to an audio movers link and they can listen to their phone in their AirPods, which typically they're very comfortable giving notes on because that's where they consume most of their music. and they can hear the changes you're making in real time. So you can find out, am I closer or am I not? It's a killer thing to have. 99 bucks a year. That kind of sucks that it's subscription, but it is more than it paid for itself in time with me. The other thing he has on his list is their binaural renderer, which I think is super interesting because I know at one point he was going out of Pro Tools into Logic to render binaurally for Atmos mixes. So a one-time payment of $79.99 to get a Atmos 714 binaural renderer is kind of interesting, especially from this guy who does a whole lot of Atmos work. That's interesting. I might have to check this out. Last two things on his list, Excel for Mac, 160 bucks. He says he does all of his business logging with this. I have another thing that I like a little better, but if you're an Excel person, cool. I have something a little later, stick around, for specifically like business owners that's a little cheaper than this, although it is a yearly thing, but it does a whole lot more for you than what Excel will do. So to each their own. Last thing on Warren's list was Dropbox. I second that. I use Dropbox all the time. I finally got the big boy Dropbox and I'm paying for the space. It just makes sorting those files, backups, everything super easy when you're dealing with multiple locations or sending files to multiple places. Of course, sub that for Google Drive, whatever your off-site file management choice of flavor is. I like Dropbox and apparently so does he. Next up, Matt McQueen. Good buddy, had a YouTube channel, Capsule to Cone. He's not really doing much on the YouTube channel anymore. This guy is a killer producer, killer engineer. Go give that dude some love. He only gave me one, but I'm gonna take it seriously because this dude gets some killer tones. Matt McQueen, the one thing on his list was the Purified SLP 538 EQ. He says it's basically on every channel in a mix. Good old Sam Pura over here just doing God's work with these plugins. He's got some killer models and they're all pretty cheap. This is $29.38. Why? I don't know why it's 38 cents, but they're killer plugins. And I mean, this is very reminiscent of like an SSL style EQ. So if you're familiar with that, Sam just does a killer job. Next, a good old buddy of mine, Daniel Howell. This guy is a killer engineer, has a great ear, has been a musician for basically his entire life. Interesting thing about his recommendations that I think, looking from the outside in, he does studio work as well as a lot of live work as like a touring front of house engineer. This dude knows his stuff, but his picks are very much in both of those worlds. His first one, Waves SSL EV2, which right now is only $39.99. That's a killer price, down from $249. I mean, it's Waves. Stuff always goes on sale with Waves, but this is a pretty big one. I can see him using this because this is SSL style, which seems like everybody loves an SSL style channel in their workflow in the studio, but he's also using this live. So that means he could take this, get really familiar with it in a studio context, but also use it live because he's using WaveGrid when he runs front of house. So he's very intimately knowledgeable about this plugin and his next one as well, which is another Waves plugin, F6. This is basically Waves' answer to something like Pro Q3. So if you work in both of these worlds and you have a live rig as well, you run WaveGrid and you can host Waves plugins on those, this is a pretty good option. You can think about it pretty much like a FabFilter Pro Q3. It can be very much a traditional EQ. It can be a dynamic EQ. You can manipulate the stereo field. You can just do mid-side. There's a lot of flexibility in that EQ, and I use it live all the time. When I'm running, I have multiple instances of these in my WaveGrid. It's a pretty cool EQ to use live. I don't use it so much in the studio, pretty much just live for me. Next up, Jake ESPY. Good friend that I just met in the last year. Killer songwriter, engineer, mixing engineer. This dude knows his stuff. His picks are very reminiscent of some of my own. First one he had, once again, was FabFilter Pro Q3. It just comes up a lot of places. It's a fast EQ. Don't need to say any more than that. His second one, I also agree with. It's the UAD 1176. He didn't say which one, so I'm assuming he meant the Classic Limited Collection, which as it stands right now is stupid cheap at $39. If you don't have a really good emulation of 1176, of which there are thousands, I'll admit, this is a cool way to get a lot of different revisions of them, and UAD does it really, really well. And 39 bucks, it's $260 off. There's 9 days left at the time of filming, so that would make it by January 18th, 2024. This will be 39 bucks. Go get it. It's cheap. You will find uses for it, I promise you. His next one is on crazy sale as well, the UAD LA2A. You can get the whole collection of these for $29 right now. If you need a killer LA2A style, again, of which there are hundreds out there, this is a really, really good one. And you get 3 different flavors of it for 29 bucks. 270 bucks off for the next 9 days. That comes up to January 18th. So if you're watching this before January 18th, you can go get a crazy deal on these. 29 bucks. Guarantee you'll use it. Jake also had Valhalla, and he specifically said vintage verb on his list of plugins that he uses all the time. And I have to agree, it's crazy. It's 50 bucks. Easy purchase for a reverb. Now the next one on Jake's list comes with a little bit of an explanation, because you could get this plugin from spending as little as $99 all the way up to $699. That sounds like crazy, but hear me out for a second. Melodyne. He just specified Melodyne. He didn't say which one. I can tell you which one I use. I use Melodyne Studio. That's like the top tier Melodyne. It has made my workflow way faster because there's a lot you can do with Studio that you can't do with some of the other ones. It is kind of stupid that it's broken out that way, but if you're working in Melodyne, I recommend just buying the Essentials or Assistant to start out with. If you find that's a workflow that you really, really like, you can upgrade, and they run sales a lot for their upgrades, and you can get to Melodyne 5 Studio for cheaper than what it costs to buy it outright. Check it out, see if you dig it at one of the lower tiers, because if you need a really good tuning platform, it's hard to beat Melodyne for its flexibility and its ease and its integration into like every DAW, and it can grow with you. If you just want to go all in, it's hard to beat Melodyne Studio. If I get a project with like 60 vocals, and yeah, it happens in a pop arrangement, you can get that many. You can tune all of them at the same time, instantly. It makes it that much faster. Last one on Jake's list is Slate Trigger 2. One of those utilities, I use it all the time. I don't even think about it. It's just there. If you need to trigger something, Slate. There you go. 119 bucks. Comes with a ton of samples. I mostly use it to trigger my own samples. Pretty flexible. One time bite the bullet, you'll use it a lot. Jonah Lane. This dude is a good friend that I don't see nearly as much as I should. I love this guy's ear when it comes to music making, how he approaches being an instrumentalist, his ear for arrangement and just aggression tone. So I love his picks for this. First pick is Pro L2 Fab Filter again. You see this coming up on a lot of people's lists. It's interesting that everybody kind of picked a different one. But Pro L2, a killer limiter. It's very flexible if you're doing a lot of different styles of work, or if you're finding yourself needing to limit a lot of different types of sources. It's hard to beat Pro L2. Super flexible, super powerful, 169 bucks. Definitely one of those things. It's different than like an L1 or an L2 or an L3 from Waves. It's just fundamentally different. There's a lot more flexibility here. Is it the greatest sounding limiter in the world? No, but it finds its way into my workflow on every single session. Next thing Jonah had was the UAD Helios. I assume he's talking about the preamp. I could totally see this for him. Just a very colored preamp, like a very vintage style thing. I love it. And right now, this is $29. Another stupid deal purchase for a killer channel strip EQ, 29 bucks UAD. Go for it. This pick is close to my heart because I have actual 1084s, and this was the UAD 1084. Great channel strip with a super useful EQ. I don't have this particular plugin, but I have the preamp that this was modeled after, and very useful. Kind of makes me sick to my stomach to think that you could get pretty much the same thing for $149, because that is not what I paid for mine. But there you go. Last but not least, my list. I feel like I do this every time I open up a session and show you guys something, but I use the Billy Decker stuff so much. Specifically, the ones I'm using a lot are the Billy Decker drums and Billy Decker Master. You could buy either one of those things for 29 bucks on their own right now, which is a dumb deal, or you can buy all of them together for 99 bucks. I can tell you, I didn't pay $623 is what they're saying. It's on sale from $623. When I purchased it when it first came out, it wasn't that much, but it wasn't 99 bucks either. I definitely paid more than that, and I would do it again. So at 99 bucks, it's very worth it. I've gotten my money out of it multiple times. Very heavy-handed plugins, but the drums and the Master are awesome for me. My next one, to reiterate, Warren, is Soothe 2. I use it a lot. It's definitely a plugin you can overuse. And that depth knob, if you push it too far, you will hear a crazy amount of phase shift. So you have to be knowledgeable about where you're using it and how much you're using it. But it is great. It's a great problem solver, especially when you're getting tracks you had no control over and how you recorded them. My next one that has already been said, Valhalla Vintage Verb, 50 bucks. If you're wanting a sale for this, it barely ever goes on sale. So 50 bucks is a killer price for this thing. It's not gonna be more expensive than that, and I don't think I've ever seen it go on sale. I think I have seen it go on sale once, now that I think about it actually, but I already owned it. I'm happy to pay 50 bucks for it because I use it so much. Probably one of their more recognizable ones is Valhalla Shimmer, which I thought was exactly what I wanted, but I don't use it nearly as much as I use the Vintage Verb. I also have Room, which is cool, but I use a Vintage Verb way more. My next one is FabFilter Saturn 2. This is a very versatile kind of utility style plugin. If you think of like a distortion plug or saturation, you're reading that, you kind of think in the realm of Decapitator. And it can do that, where Decapitator is kind of like aging a little bit. This has definitely a different type of, or many different types of saturation profiles that you can achieve with this plugin, and in a multi-band context. How I'm normally using it is it's a killer noise gate. The dynamics knob of this is crazy useful. If all you want to do is put one split band, put this on your snare drum, put one crossover point right up the fundamental, and then above that, take the dynamics all the way down. You get a very useful snare gate where it's not gonna leak the high end through. Other than that, the tone shaping on this thing is insanely useful on toms. I use it just about every single session. And I use it in a live context when I'm mixing broadcast stuff. It's very useful, very powerful, not very CPU intensive, all around good pick, 129 bucks. My next one, again, to reiterate Warren, was Michelangelo, just because it's so versatile. It's not the cheapest plugin out here. It's $249, but again, catch it on sale. It's a very elegant EQ. Where Pro Q3 is very utility oriented, this is not. This is wide strokes. This is very shaping and transient and saturation. Really interesting plugin, and it's really hard to describe. Go try it. Give it a demo. Worth it. Tone Projects is out here doing crazy stuff. And this is not on my list, but I will give a honorable mention here. Basslane Pro from Tone Projects. This has been insane to try to learn. You could think about this thing as like, how much low end impact do you want on the sides of your mix? You can also do it in reverse, right? You can have how much is in your mono channel, but to get that weight on the sides in a very clean and non-destructive way, I have a lot to learn with this plugin, and it's not officially on my list, but this has been a very intriguing, very hard thing to learn. And just as much as every other Tone Projects plugin that's on this list, it takes a lot to figure out what's going on under the hood here. The way they lay it out, there's a lot of tools here. Some of the most well thought out, well featured plugins of any company out here doing stuff, and they price them accordingly, but really interesting. My next one reiterates Jake's Melodyne. I use it every single session. If you're wanting to tune something without it sounding like it's being tuned, Melodyne is how you're going to do it. Of course, there's other tuning softwares out there. This is the one that I found works best for my workflow. It's really, really fast. It's very transparent, and oftentimes you cannot tell if something's being tuned. Obviously, you can go hyper aggressive with it if you want to, but really useful. Submission Audio Flatline, a very cool clipper. I'm very used to running on my mix bus, my Neve, into some really nice converters, and that is very much a feel rather than staying inside the box. There's a couple plugins that do that converter hitting, clipping feel really, really well, and Flatline is one of those. Just came out with Flatline 2, which is a free upgrade from Flatline if you had that before. This is a super useful plugin. You basically get a clipper and a limiter, and then you can run it in hybrid mode, which is both. Really, really handy, sounds really good as far as clippers go. Good design, 139 bucks. My next one, also from Submission Audio, is Double Tap. This is basically billed as like a bass guitar compressor, bass dynamics processing. So you have two knobs on this thing, the low compression, and then you have a volume dependent from that low compression, an all compression compressing the entire spectrum of the source, And then there's like a saturation knob, either glue or grunt, which one's gonna kind of push it forward in the mix. Very useful compressor, especially for low end stuff. And a lot of times I'm actually using it on bass, but it is very useful on toms. It sounds really, really good to get them to really punch, control the low end of that instrument. The compressor on this thing is actually really useful. It's cool even if you just use the all comp side on something like guitars. Really useful plugin. Pulls its weight, $69. Nice. Verbiage, I've said it once, I've said it before, $69. It's a killer verb. It sounds disgusting, but as far as snares, this is really, really good. I've talked about this thing a lot on my channel. We don't need to talk about it anymore. This one, also $69. Also nice. This is a Plug-in Alliance model of a piece of gear that I have and I've talked about. I have the vac rack, Inward Connections vac rack. I said that I didn't even know they'd stopped making this unit, but it sounds unbelievable. And the price is inflated to such an extent that it's extraordinary. And there haven't been any models of that hardware piece that I knew of until this, the Vac Attack from Plug-in Alliance. Right now, it's a stupid deal at $69, $69.99. Nice. And it sounds pretty good. It's not spot on to the hardware. I don't think anything ever will be. That thing is a unicorn, and I had no idea. When I bought it new, it was not nearly what it costs now because you just can't find them. But incredibly useful plugin. I would never be able to afford the vast amount of channel counts on this one. This is one it really makes sense to have a plugin of. If you can find the hardware of a vac rack, buy it. You will not be disappointed. And the resale, you'll probably make your money back. A plugin is definitely a sunk cost, but there's a whole other realm of ease of use here, right? It still sounds incredible on bass. It still sounds amazing on vocals, which is what I love to use it on. And you can kind of go crazy because you can use this in a stereo context where I can never exactly match the stereo on this, the left and right. Even though it's calibrated, it's never gonna be perfect for stereo use. And you can use this on your tube bus and not worry about stuff like that. Really cool. My last plugin, also from Plug-in Alliance, is the Amic EQ 200. This thing's crazy good. It's an EQ that sounds great. I use it on my tube bus. I use it on a per channel basis, $59.99. I have the Plug-in Alliance bundle. I pay the yearly fee to have everything. Plug-in Alliance is hard to beat with stuff like that. Like, they have a lot of really killer plugins I find a use for in just about every single session. If you want to buy it, $59.99. That's a good purchase. I'm not really sure if this is a plugin or a utility because you can use it as a plugin. Source Elements, Source Nexus. I use this to route audio anywhere and everywhere within my computer, and paired with the flexible stuff in Mac under the hood, I can get audio just about anywhere I need. Sounds great. It's fast. The price here, it's kind of hard to find. Looks like there are only subscriptions available now, and I can tell you I did not do a subscription, I just purchased it. I've been using Source Nexus for a long time. What I can tell you is the plugin that I have does not look like this. Same functionality essentially. Worth a look if you need to do some like really advanced stuff under the hood. Although Warren had a great option with Loopback, which was only 99 bucks, and it looked like a one-time fee. My next one would be Dropbox. I'm using that for file transfer. Awesome. I'll reiterate Warren on that one again. My big one here, where Warren was talking about Excel for business expenses and stuff like that, I use QuickBooks. QuickBooks Self-Employed, which looks like it's 50% off for 12 months. If this is the perfect time, beginning of the year, if you don't track your business expenses in a really good way, this could be a good chance to do that. I'm starting the year fresh, doing it right. QuickBooks is great for me. If you're doing your own taxes, it can help you because there's a tax estimator, and in our line of work, taxes are one of the hardest things to get right. I have a CPA, but there's also functionality built into this. It's web-based, so I can do this from my phone, I can do it from my computer, putting in my expenses, tracking whether it's personal or business related. It tracks my mileage for me, which is great. And I can invite my CPA so she can come in and look at all this stuff in real time. It's been a godsend with anything money related for my business. Speaking of money related things, Wealthfront. This has changed the game for me. In our line of work, it's really hard to know how to even begin to save money. You can invest on your own. I have found Wealthfront to be super useful. Having a lot of different accounts because there's different revenue streams, and working in the studio, doing live stuff, having YouTube, all these different things that kind of generate capital going to different places. I can see everything with something like Wealthfront. And not only that, if I reach a certain cap, I can have it auto invest for me, basically creating my own retirement fund for me. I can do IRAs, all that stuff. If this sounds like complete foreign language to you, it's something you should check out. I'll put a link down below. If nothing else, go and start a checking account with Wealthfront. They have some of the best returns and interest rates that you're gonna find on an account like this. And if you sign up with the link I have below, you'll also get a bonus of 0.5%. If you go and open up an account and put money in there, it's just gonna make money in the background for you, which is fantastic. And then from there, you can decide if you want to invest some of that money. It's been super helpful for me. This is a weird business to work in, and keeping track of money is one of those things that's not fun and nobody likes to do it. We're musicians. This is not our background, right? Having something like Wealthfront helped me a lot. So I'll put links down below if you guys want to check that out. Definitely a game changer for me personally. My final two have nothing to do with music. DaVinci Resolve. It's how I edit the videos for this channel. Now I have a couple other editors who help me out, and I think they're also using DaVinci Resolve. It's a fantastic platform to start with because the color correcting is industry leading, right? But beyond that, it's free. If you just want to use the free version and get started editing videos for yourself, or filming videos and editing them for clients, which is a huge way to get people in the door. If you're not just providing music, but you can also provide them some kind of content, it's been crazy helpful for me. I do own the studio version of this now, but if you want to get started with the free version, it's basically kind of like the Reaper of the video world. You can get into it for free, figure out if you like it. If you want to buy into it, it's relatively affordable. $295 now for the studio version, but there's a whole lot of flexibility there, and that is way cheaper than something like Premiere. That is a reoccurring thing that I personally tried and just never quite clicked with, but DaVinci clicked really well. The last one is Recut. This has been super helpful in making videos for you guys. A video just like this, that's pretty long, there's a lot of dead space where I'm kind of fiddling with the iPad, where stuff is just silent. What Recut does is it automatically goes in there and cuts out the silence and then drops it as a timeline so I can import it into DaVinci Resolve and edit it super fast. Basically does that first edit for me. If you guys do videos, this is a crazy time saver. 99 bucks. Go check it out. I'll put a link down in the description below. There you have it. These are all the things that all these people who work as professionals in the music industry, as well as myself, use on a day-to-day basis so much that we barely even think about it. Obviously, you should not go out and buy every single one of these. That's not what this is for. This is not how to use this video. But if you see things that might work for your workflow, or you catch a deal on here, that's awesome. Go for it. It also should be said that not everybody is using every one of these plugins. This is very much a personal thing. So if you see something that works for you, or if you like one of these individuals' work, there you go. This is what they're using. If you guys like this video, hit the like button, subscribe down below. There's no sponsor for this video, so hitting that subscribe button would go a very, very long way. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one.